I will officially call this meeting to order, and we'll ask if Peter Nelson is with us. Would he please give us the invocation?
All right. While you're virtually, thank you for our leaders and volunteers that work sacrificially for a better society. May you guide us and guide them in the decisions that they make. May you position our hearts and minds to work for more unity to solve our problems. Thank you for your protection during these uncertain times. We ask that you continue to protect us, our families, our neighbors, close and far. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Peter. And Alan or David, I'm not sure which, can you bring up the flag?
It's going to be David.
David, okay, David?
Give me 1 second.
Thank you. Well, if you will, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the
republic
for which it stands,
One nation under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice for all. Thank you, David. I am very sorry to tell you that Paul Christie's wife, Jamie, fell earlier this week when they were at the beach, and she has suffered a brain bleed. I'm not sure what all that means, but that's what Paul told us. She had surgery yesterday, and she's in the intensive care unit. So I would ask that you would please remember her and Paul with your prayers. If I learn anything further on that, I'll certainly let everyone know. As I think most of us know, starting in January, we are going to begin hosting the Thursday Club with a joint meeting on the second Tuesday of the month. And the Thursday Club will host us with a joint meeting on the third, and a new schedule for that has been sent out. Our first joint meeting will be hosted by us next Tuesday, the 12th. Also, it does appear that we have enough members logged in by itself, with or without proxy votes, to hold our AGM this year and vote on officers for next year. But first, before we go any further, are there any nominations for these offices from the floor? The offices we're going to vote on are president, secretary, treasurer, and 2 directors. Are there any nominations from the floor for those positions? Hearing none, the ballot will be by voice vote, and I would ask that you turn on your microphones. The candidates are President Ingrid Keller, Second Vice President Nat Alton, Secretary Alan Barnhart, Treasurer Doran Swearingen, Directors Ernest Sills and Lindsay Kiesler. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Nay. Any abstaining? Please indicate with your name. Being none, I declare that the slate of candidates proposed have been approved and elected. Thank you very much. And now, our program, unless there are some other announcements before we go further. Okay, our program today is David Ludwig, and he's going to talk about COVID-19 and Rotary. David, you have the floor.
Okay, good. Before I share the screen, let me tell you why I'm interested in this. Remember, Rotary, the 4-way test was developed over 100 years ago in a much different culture. Since then, some massive changes have occurred. And so with COVID right now, I'm sensing that we're just embarking in a massive cultural change again. And maybe Rotary can help lead the way. So I think we're actually with Rotary are going to be a little bit of countercultural now, you know. Let me give you personal history. About 50 years ago, one of the things I noticed as a counselor that the students I was talking to, no longer did they feel guilt, but rather anxiety. A shift away from intact family units to doing their own thing, and thus the anxiety that follows your own choices. I noticed in our own children, they're not quite as interested in waiting until they had the money to buy things, but they would start buying things without having the money for it. I would call it they didn't learn how to delay gratification like we did. Then in the sports teams, I noticed that those loyalties for sports figures and the like that seemed to be part of their team now started getting shifted, and teams too. The whole loyalty began to break down, also in our industries too. And then the final thing I noticed, Kathy, my wife, taught school. And when she first started teaching 50 years ago or so, there would only be 2 or 3 students that were living with grandmother or, you know, from a broken home situation. And by the time she finished, she had over half of her students that were from very interesting situations. So I'm going to share the screen now. So I call this COVID and the 4-way test, just what our culture needs. When I started speaking to my son about presenting this, and you know what I was saying is, oh, our culture's gone to the dogs, you know, things gotten worse. He said, Dad, wait just a minute. You forget that our grandson, your grandson Stephen, who's deformed, most of you know him, he would have been bullied, he would have been laughed at, he would have had a miserable life. But because the culture changed, Stephen actually never got bullied. He feels good about his body. He's able to present it in ways that he wouldn't have before that. And so I started out with the pendulum shift. Actually, the shift, I think, summarizing everything I just said, it was actually a shift away from community orientation. We do things for the good of everybody, to a shift towards individual rights. It started in the 70s, late 60s, you know, with the Vietnam War, the tremendous mobilization, you know, communication, everything else, the individual. And Ford was right in his own culture that any color is right if it's black, to now highly individualized. Everybody has their own designer way of thinking. And so it's really a shift towards the focus on me, focus on injustice, and the highlight of inequality of power, concern for the marginalized, the decrease in bullying. So all of these are a blessing. I think they've really taken a culture that had its power and excesses in one way, and it was swung it way to the other way. But I have a feeling that the pendulum has maybe gone too far, since it's sort of a shift away from the concern for the family and community. I think we've witnessed a tremendous family breakdown, not only a divorce rate and the like, but just in a whole community breakdown. Cyber communities are formed, but it's so easy to defriend. So we're in a more castaway society. The other thing that seems to have happened is a disrespect for authority. And so we're really developing a culture of disrespect, and also a lack of integrity. Instead of your handshake being good, like way back when the first Rotary, the 4-way test was developed, no. Now you can spin the truth. You can say something and then say why it was really wrong. And the other, what I can say troubling thing I looked at is, or thought about, was a rise of entitlement. Whole sense that individual rights is turned into, I have a right to, and you know, the government better give me this money. I have a right to it, rather than appreciation for what's going on. So these are the troubling trends. So let's say how Rotary can help form a new cultural climate, because COVID has changed the rules. And so, yep, COVID, it may be a blessing. Sheltering in place for about a year hasn't been fun, but it could be a blessing because I see a massive cultural shift taking place because of COVID. And let's link it to the four-way test now. Okay, how about the truth? All of you know the first of the four-way test is it's the truth. Well, take a look at the culture. The pendulum has swung so far that how many lies do you hear at any given day? How many people say things and you go, oh, come on. Or how much do you believe when you hear it presented politically or anything like that? And so what's happened is with postmodernism, there's a whole sense of there's no absolutes anymore. There's no absolute truth. Everybody has a right to decide truth for themselves. And so there's a lot of disinformation, image doctors that every corporation has. Something happens, they have to present it in a certain way, and their little sound bites. You know what's going on. And so look what COVID has done. COVID has cut through everything and said, hey, this is real. You can't they try to spin it away. They try to, no, but it's real. There's something very real about a whole culture. And now you have people like Fauci. When he speaks, people generally go, wow, yeah, someone is actually telling us what's real, as opposed to so many other people. So I see the emergence of, let's say, a culture that's looking for something to hang on to. And so the Rotary motto of "Is it the truth?" I think is really right on in moving our culture in like the pendulum swinging into a much better direction. Like transparency, I like a disarming honesty that no, you really say what's really going on without trying to spin it, so that you can shake hands again and rely upon what a person's word, the value of a person's word coming back, and then like a long-term trust, because that's really what relationships need. So I say, is it the truth now becomes a really key element in maybe bringing the culture back. Oh, is it fair to all concerned? I like Hegel. He said there's a thesis, then the antithesis, and then a synthesis. It's not, you don't go back to the same place when the pendulum swings back, but you take what's good about the swing and yet incorporate it into a whole new understanding. And so is it fair to all concerned actually keeps what this past culture tried to do. Diversity, and that's what COVID did. COVID sort of made it a level playing field again. I mean, everybody gets COVID. Oh, certain cultures are a little bit more privileged in terms of getting a vaccine now and things like that. But COVID, it went everywhere. And so bringing back, is it fair to all concerned, or keeping that, the whole sense of justice, diversity, concern for fairness for others, but not self, see? And so the fair to all isn't my rights so much, but you're bringing it to, let's really be sensitive to those who are marginalized and things like that. Let's keep what the culture has done in that. So is it fair to all concerned? Wow, that is really part of what the new culture could look like. Oh, and this one I really like. Goodwill. Now that's a countercultural concept. Well, you see the disrespect, trash talk. You see it everywhere. Bending the rules, disrespecting authority, looking out for yourself. Self is more important than the relationship. When you say, is it good? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? You're actually saying relationships now are more important than personal agendas. COVID now made this possible. But look at the scientists working together like they've never, and all the labs around the world to break the code, to get the vaccine out. I mean, this is working together at a level that we haven't seen before. And so this whole notion of working together for the good of humanity, focusing on much more valuable to work together than, keep your own private things and try to win. And so it's a shift away from winning, so to speak, and being able to see what other people do as a gift and willing to give that. So that this Rotary goodwill, I think, is really very, very part of what I would like to see the new culture look like. And finally, beneficial. Is it beneficial to all? This means you go away from me, me, me. I actually saw this license plate not too long ago. Looking out for number one, doing it my way, which is really the current culture. It's swung way too far. And look what COVID has done. It's now taken not the star athlete or the person who has really become successful, but it's really taken those people who have really been compassionate to others. The frontliners, those people that have given themselves in sacrifice. These are now the heroes of our culture. So the culture is shifted to the beneficial to all concerned, caring for one another. The whole notion of how are we going to handle this would be then the way this would all wrap up. And so I was thinking the four-way test, even though it was written 100 years ago in another culture, might be, with COVID, a way of us as Rotarians helping bring a much healthier culture from the pendulum swing to bring it back more to concern for one another, realizing that relationships work when everybody is concerned for the good of the whole and not just looking out after self-interest. So maybe a move away from the whole individual rights as it's now gone into postmodernism, and then everybody then takes that as a license to lie or to spin the truth or to decide for themselves what the value of the culture is, to go back to some sense of absolute, which is really what the Rotary four-way test is. It's a series of absolutes, like the 10 Commandments. It is a series of absolutes which you can count on. For this is what makes communities work. This is what makes businesses work. This is what makes families work. And so I think the four-way test is really possibly could be on the forefront of what the culture actually needs. Now that we've had this massive COVID reaction that's going to shift the habits and the way people interact with each other, perhaps we can help with Rotary, we can help bring about a healthy change in our culture so that our culture becomes much more truthful, keep the whole sense of fairness, but then beneficial and making sure we all look out for the good of everyone, that the relationship is more important than our own individual advantage. So anyway, COVID in the four-way test. I would call it service above self. Isn't that countercultural? That you would say that helping someone else rather than you benefiting is actually an absolute value. So anyway, these are my thoughts about how the culture has shifted over the past 50 years, starting with the 60s and 70s and the flower children and all, stuff you were involved, some of you were involved in, as I was. And Vietnam situation and all the explosion of knowledge and everything else, making the individual the king now. Perhaps there's a swing back where we make the community and working together and working with one another so that our culture gets a little bit healthier. So, open to any questions, thoughts, things like that. But this is COVID and the four-way test. Okay, you can stop the screen sharing now, Dave.
Well, thank you for that, David. Do you think that that our president has ever heard of the four-way test?
Oh my gosh. Well, I could say that of a few other people too, but
Sure.
One of the things that I learned very early on is he's the epitome of what I would consider the individual, that the individual is more important than anything else.
Right.
And he's stuck somewhere in a stage where he's the center of the world, but
Yeah.
so no, I wouldn't put the president up as the champion of the four-way test. But then I wouldn't put some of the other ones, on the other side up as champions of the four-way test either.
Well, I agree with that, and I think we've got several Republicans in the House and the Senate that need to read the four-way test. And
Amen, amen. We ought to give it to them. Yep.
yeah,
And it's time not to look out after your own party, but how can we once again work together as a nation? Well, and that, is that possible? And I think with Rotary and its ideals, that could be a leading force along with COVID to maybe make a big change. Anyway, that's my pipe dream. I don't know if it'll happen.
Yeah, great presentation. I really enjoyed that.
Excellent.
Thanks, John.
yes, it was. And one thing that encourages me about this is you're right. I think going back 30 or 40 years, we started getting away from personal responsibility for ourselves and trying to put others above us to where we're above everyone else. But like everything else in life, the pendulum always swings back and forth. And maybe it's time for it to swing back towards individuals taking more responsibility for themselves and being more careful and caring of others. I certainly hope so. Anyway.
All right, that's exactly what I think. I think COVID has almost forced the issue. I think the culture has spun out of control. You can see the United States compared to the other countries. Look how we've dealt with COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't worked together. It's been a almost a laughable disaster. And so I think it maybe exposed the root of our culture that needs to be shifted. So maybe Rotary is the place where it can happen.
Well, it's a good starting point.
It's a starting point, yeah.
Right. Well, any other comments or questions?
That was a really great presentation. I didn't know what to expect when you said you were going to talk about COVID and culture. And I agree with a lot of what you said. When I lived in Asia for 2 years, and there's definitely more of a sense of community before the self, maybe to the extreme in their culture, I think, to some extent, because younger people become so concerned with pleasing the elders that they end up, if they are not doing well in school, they'll commit suicide. So it's almost to the extreme. And certainly we would never want to go there. And
we don't want to go back there.
No. But, I do see some of that shift starting to happen in my generation. Younger people are moving out of the bigger cities and wanting to live in smaller communities.
Right.
And I do think it's because of that, wanting that sense of community and that sense of belonging. It does come with responsibility. But I do see that starting to happen. So I'm appreciative of your positive spin, even though I see other examples where I'm still concerned.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Interesting, Ingrid. One of my earliest memories as a little boy, real small, there's a vague memory of a woman who had to get up in front of church and confess that she had sex and is now pregnant. That actually happened in one of the churches.
Wow.
The same thing as the culture, the shame, don't you dare ruin our name to the extreme really is pretty scary.
Are you sure you weren't reading the Scarlet Letter?
Nope. I read that too, by the way.
David, as a counterpoint to that, I think the thing that just has driven me crazy is the people who say, you can't make me wear a mask. I don't have to wear a mask. And that is, no, you don't have to, but it sure would be nice, either that or stay the hell away from me.
Notice the difference in the United States and someplace like Japan?
Yeah.
Mask wearing, boy, over there it's not an option. No,
they do it all the time.
Yeah, over here, yeah. You're right. It's a cultural thing.
Ernie, there was a real interesting program we watched last night called The Social Dilemma. And I'd recommend that you look at it and watch it. It's talking about how our social media is using artificial intelligence to change the way we view things and the way it feeds information to us in order to make money off of the social media.
Yeah.
Real interesting program.
Oh,
Would
okay.
second that. That Social Dilemma was a fantastic show on Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix, Social Dilemma. Okay, I'm gonna have to watch that because our grandson is making money off of TikTok right now. So find out what the evil is.
I also want to give Dr. Ludwig kudos. My wife and I, you were one of our favorite professors at LR, and you didn't disappoint this time. Fantastic program.
Hey, thanks. That's been, oh my gosh, wait, that's been too long ago. So
You know, Ernie, you're right about the people that don't want to wear a mask. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. However, I do think that if our president had told everyone they needed to wear a mask and encourage that instead of discouraging it, I think we would have had a lot more success with people wearing masks for whatever that thought is worth.
Oh yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. And in fact, and I don't want to get into politics, but I would contribute that lack of leadership on part of his not being reelected.
Oh, I agree.
yeah.
I agree.
His handling of
Look at it, look at it
Oh,
more as look at it more as a family unit. If the husband and wife have a bad relationship, the kids then don't obey, go crazy. Okay, I think the real evil was that President Trump and Nancy Pelosi haven't spoken to each other for what, years?
Yeah.
I mean, the bad relationship between those two are symbolic of the bad relationships that exist in our culture, see, or at the leadership. So, yeah, Trump, I'm not going to support him at all, but I really think the lack of working together and the relationships at the highest level is really one of the bases of our sickness of our culture. And that's why everybody that feels they have the right to do whatever they want.
I think it gets back to your presentation, and a good relationship takes effort on both people's parts.
Yep.
Well, let's all hope that more people in the world will pay attention to the four-way test and live by it. That would be a good thing if that could happen, I think. Our next meeting, of course, will be on the 12th, and our invocation will be by Catherine Newton. And the program will be presented by Jeff Mackey, and he is bringing to us Dr. John Earl, who will talk about Pfizer's efforts to create a vaccine. So I'm sure that'll be a very fascinating program, and we will be having the Thursday Club join us for that. So if you would join me in the four-way test, I would appreciate it. Of the things
we think, say, or do.
is it
the truth?
Is it fair to
Not
all
all
concerned?
concerned.
Will build
Will
goodwill.
it be goodwill,
The friendship
friendship?
Will be
Will it be
beneficial.
beneficial?
all concerned.
And to all of you, I don't wish you a happy new year, but I wish you a better year than we've had in 2020. Stay healthy and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lou. Same to you.
Thank you, David. Happy New Year.